Hello students, we are going to talk about the living world. Life, as we all know, is very unique and complex and made up of cellular organization of molecules. Therefore, Lamarck said that a body cannot have life if its constituent parts are not cellular. Biology is the science of life forms and living processes. The various traits shown by the living beings are as follows. As we all know that all unicellular and multicellular organisms are made up of cells, and they are very intricately designed to form a multicellular organism or an unicellular organism. Basically, what is the cell made up of? It's the protoplasm, or more commonly known as the living matter. Now we all know that living beings, they have a definite shape, and to form this definite shape, what we need various components to come together. They have to cooperate with each other, coordinate with each other to form the whole body. We also require energy to move this body. You all know that to study we need energy, to eat the food we need energy, to perform various kinds of activities we need energy. So, energy requirement is another trait of the living body. Have you ever heard of the word homeo? Homeo means similar, congenial. Now, within the body, internal environment should have a congenial atmosphere or environment for all its organs to move and work in a coordinated manner. We know that every living organism has an internal environment which is suitable for the functioning of its internal organs, and all the living beings, they move in the external environment. But in the case of multicellular organisms, we find there is no interference between the internal as well as the external environment. Growth. Now, living things, they grow from a single cell to a multicellular organisms. So everybody knows that living organisms, they grow and they increase in the mass and the cell number, and they grow huge like an elephant or an amoeba, which is an unicellular organism that also grows through cell division and produces its progeny. Now, even plants grow. Where do they grow? At the apical part, which is known as the meristematic part. The plants grow through the meristematic tissue at their apical part. Can you see this puppy? Such a sweet one, then maturing and then growing into an adult. Therefore, growth is an irreversible process in the life of living beings, whether unicellular or multicellular or plants. Then coming to reproduction. We all know that living beings reproduce. Why? Because they produce their progeny which looks similar to their parents. Reproduction means producing progeny with features more or less similar to that of the parents. Now, do you know that plants and animals, they reproduce? Plants reproduce both sexually as well as asexually. Animals reproduce sexually. Even the unicellular organisms reproduce to produce their daughter cells. See, in the case of amoeba, it reproduces by binary fission to produce two daughter cells. Reproduction is again an unique feature of the living beings to produce the progeny of the similar kinds, although they might vary from their parents. Metabolism. All living beings, they show metabolism. Metabolism is defined as the sum total of chemical reactions which are taking place inside the body of an organism. Now, metabolisms are of two kinds, that is, anabolism and catabolism. They together produce metabolism. Anabolism is the constructive process that is taking place within the body, and catabolism is the destructive process which is taking place within the body. Do you know growth takes place only when anabolism, that is the constructive process, is more, overruling the destructive process. Therefore, metabolism is again a very important part of a healthy living organism. That is how one grows, then grows old, because of the cellular processes taking place even at the molecular level. What is consciousness? We have all heard the word conscious, but what is it actually? All living beings, you have must seen, they respond to the external stimuli, and this stimuli can be in the form of physical, chemical or biological. We have nose to smell, eyes to see, ears to hear, and that is how we perceive the things which are going on at the external level, and that is how we can perceive the external stimuli. Do you think plants also do so? Plants also respond to external stimuli, but in case of plants, the external stimuli are in the form of light, water, temperature and pollutants. Living beings also move, especially animals. That's why they are said to be in locomotion. Locomotion means to move. That is, they can move from one place to another. Living beings vary from each other. One plant varies from the other, one flower varies from the other, you vary from your siblings or your parents. So everybody varies. That is how one can be recognized from the other. The variation again is a very important part of the living beings. Coming to adaptations. Now, living things, they often inherit variations or they change their forms in the form of mutations, and their functions and the behaviors which help them to adapt to the environment. This is known as adaptation. Have you ever seen that animals adapt to their surroundings? Say giraffe. Previously it was known that giraffe didn't have a long neck, but gradually when the giraffe ate away all the leaves that were at the lower level, then it started to lengthen its neck. As a result, with evolution, the giraffe's neck was long. It is also said that human beings were once upon a time monkeys, and they adapted to various environmental conditions and became human beings. The living world is very diverse. Currently, it is known that about 1.7 million species of animals and plants have been given scientific names, and there are about 1.2 million animals and 0.5 million plants. Amongst the animals, insects form the largest group with around 10,25,000 of species. Existing living species are the outcome of about 3.5 billion years of evolutionary process on this life Earth. Nearly 15,000 new species are discovered and being discovered every year. What is taxonomy? Taxonomy actually is the branch of biology which deals with the identification, the nomenclature and classification of living organisms. It deals with the rules and principles of classification. The term taxonomy was coined by A.P. de Candolle, and Carolus Linnaeus is considered as the father of taxonomy. What is systematics? It is the study of diversity of organisms, including their comparative and evolutionary relationship. The word systematics was first used by Carolus Linnaeus. Now we come to history of classification. Our Vedic literature recorded around 740 plants and 250 animals. Sushruta Samhita classified all substances into immobile and mobile. That is, immobile are the plants and the mobile are the animals. Parasara grouped the flowering plants, that is the angiosperms, into the dicotyledons and the monocotyledons. Hippocrates and Aristotle, they divided animals into four major groups. They were the insects, the birds, the fish and the whales. And Plato classified plants on the basis of their habit form, the texture, into four categories: trees, shrubs, undershrubs and the herbs. Carolus Linnaeus was referred to as the father of taxonomy, as we have already mentioned, and he had published Systema Naturae. He classified plants on the basis of sexual characteristics, and he also introduced the binomial nomenclature for plants and animals. Genera Plantarum was written by Bentham and Hooker in 3 volumes. Now, there's a question which had appeared in AIMS entrance examination 1994, that General Plantarum was written by which author? The correct answer is Bentham and Hooker. The classification is based on the following 3: identification, nomenclature and again classification. Now, what is identification? It is very much required to identify an organism, whether a plant or an animal, and then to give correct name to it so that it can be called by that name worldwide. Next comes nomenclature. What is nomenclature? There is a need to standardize the naming of living organisms such that a particular organism is known by the same name all over the world. Nomenclature can be done in the following ways. Vernacular name. Vernacular means native language or the local language. It varies from place to place, and especially in country like ours, there are various names for a particular organism or a plant in different parts of this country. Common names are also similar, they vary from place to place. Scientific names are the universal names of that organism, whether plant or animal, and it follows a definite pattern, that is, certain rules and criteria are set for scientific names. Polynomial nomenclature. What is polynomial nomenclature? A single plant or an animal can be given a very big name which is difficult to remember, learn and actually speak out. Trinomial nomenclature is giving 3 names to a single organism. For example, crow is called Corvus splendens splendens. Cabbage has been called Brassica oleracea capitata. So these kind of nomenclature, polynomial, trinomial, they are difficult to pronounce, difficult to remember. Therefore, Linnaeus gave the system of binomial nomenclature, and there is a code for nomenclature for cultivated plants, ICNCP. This nomenclature emphasizes on the generic name and the scientific name. But there are a few rules for binomial nomenclature. A scientific name consists of two words in Latin and can be derived from any other language. The first word is genus and starts with a capital letter, and second name is species that starts with the small letters. Both names are printed in italics and underlined if handwritten. The name of author is written in abbreviated form after the species name, and it is printed in Roman and never underlined. All these three words, that is the generic, the specific and the author citation, collectively form the binomial epithet. For example, if you refer to mango, the generic name for mango is Mangifera. The specific name for mango is Indica, since it's the Indian variety, and the author name is Linn. Therefore, it stands as Mangifera Indica Linn. If there are two or more words in species name, a hyphen is put between these words and constitute compound specific name like hibiscus rosa dash sinensis. Similarly, you can see a dog and a cat. The scientific name for dog is Canis familiaris, and that of a cat is Felis catus. The name Canis is the generic name and familiaris is the specific name. Similarly, here in the case of cat, Felis is the generic name and Catus is the specific name. When the generic name and the specific name are the same, it is known as Tautonym. For example, in case of rats, that is Ratus ratus. When the species and the subspecies name are the same, it is known as autonyms. For the crow, Corvus splendens splendens. When two different plants have the same name, then they are called homonyms. Since homo means similar and nym means name, homonyms like Prunus dulce, that is almond and plum. Have you ever heard of the word taxonomic hierarchy? It was Linnaeus who introduced 5 categories in the taxonomic hierarchy. However, we find that species is the most important, then comes the genus, then the family, then the order and class, then division in case of plants and phylum in case of animals. Now, what is a species and what is a concept of species? Static concept of species was given by Linnaeus, and he said that species is fixed and immutable. And the dynamic concept of species was given by Lamarck, who said that species is mutable and dynamic. It is only on the basis of species that the animals are categorized, and species is the fundamental unit of classification, which was also given by Ernst Mayr. Therefore, a species is a group of organisms which are closely related structurally as well as functionally, sharing a common gene pool which can interbreed freely and produce fertile offsprings in a natural environment. Now children, do you know what are taxonomical aids? There are various kinds of taxonomical aids. What do they do? The information they provide to store the species for future use. Now, herbarium is a kind of taxonomical aid used in plants, and it is defined as a collection of plants that is dried, pressed, preserved on the sheets. The sheets are arranged in accordance with the accepted system of classification, which you know had been given by Bentham and Hooker. The storage of sheets form a repository for future use. Here you can see the leaves which are stored, they are dried. Actually, what do? When we go out to faraway places, in hill stations, we find different kinds of leaf variety, flowers which are not available in the plains. So what do? We collect those flowers, leaves, and we keep them inside our books or copies or notebooks, and then they dry up and they form a different kind of a pattern which looks so nice, so beautiful. So that actually is a herbarium. You can see there are various techniques involved in the herbarium. That is to collect the leaves, they're drying up, poisoning them so that they are free from all moisture, mounting, stitching, labeling and deposition. Now, what are the functions of a herbarium? It is to preserve the plant wealth, including type material and paleobotanical collection. To carry out exchange and loan of preserved plant material for research, exhibitions, etc. To carry out research programs of fundamental and applied value. Compilation of flora, manuals and monographs, and you come to know about the ecology of various places. Next comes the botanical gardens. Botanical gardens are collections of living plants maintained for reference. From the time of Theophrastus, around 380 to 287 BC, gardens have contributed to the science of botany. Hanging gardens of Babylon are amongst the wonders of the ancient world. The functions of a botanical garden are: provide records of local flora for monographic work, provide facilities for collections of living plant material for biosystematic studies, supply seeds and material for botanical investigations. Botanical gardens have an aesthetic appeal and attracts a large number of visitors for conservation and general plant diversity. This is a botanical garden in Uttarakhand. Coming to the museums. What are museums? They have collections of preserved plants and animals for the study and reference. These are prepared to preserve algae, fungi, mosses, ferns and parts of gymnosperms, since they cannot be kept in the herbaria. Some important museums are Natural History Museum, London, United States National Museum, Washington. What are keys? The scheme for identification of plants and animals is known as a key. These are based on the contrasting characters. Being analytical in nature, these are generally of two types: indented or yoked key and bracketed key. Again, there was a question in the year 2004 AIMS entrance examination: which of the following is correctly matched regarding an institute and its location? National Institute of Virology, Pune, National Institute of Communicable Diseases, Lucknow, Central Drug Research Institute, Kasauli, and National Institute of Nutrition, Mumbai. So the correct answer is National Institute of Virology, Pune.